Welcome to day 3 of the Essential SQL Challenge, and you're going to want to listen to this one because we're going to learn how to filter your query results. So today's a big day. We're going to learn how to use SQL where with our select statement to limit the number of rows that are being returned from our result. So one thing that's cool about the where statement is that it's used to test against every row that's coming back in your result, and we can compare things like the column values, and depending on how things compare, we can include them in our final result, or conversely they get thrown out. So let's look at a sample where clause, and while we do that, we'll talk through the process of how SQL is working to filter your result. So here we have our query where we're going in and querying the first and last name of the person table, but now we added a filter criteria where we're going to say only bring back people who have a first name equal to Terry. So what's happening here is that our query is going to run, and it's going to go out to person. And then what it's going to do as it's running through the person table, it's going to look at the first name column, and it's going to perform a test on each row that's in this result that it's pulling through. And it's going to go, hey, is your first name equal to Terry? Yes or no? And if it comes back as a yes, then it's included in our final result. So technically, yes would be true. So if this evaluates to true, which is computer talk for yes, then we will include that record in our result. Now, the interesting thing is that my where clause can use any column in my table or expressions that are made up of the columns in my table. And they don't necessarily have to be columns that I include in my final query. So let's run this query real quickly just to see who all comes back. Okay, so here's all the 24 rows that came back with the first name of Terry. So when you use that equal sign, it's called a comparison operator. As I talked about before, when that comparison's true, that means the row is going to be included in your result. Now, one thing that's interesting is you can also use the not equals operator. So if you wanted to bring back everybody whose name wasn't Terry, we could do that just by putting in like these counter opposing greater than and equal signs. This means not equal. And when I do this and run it, I'm going to get back all the people in our system whose first name is not Terry. Okay, so I got one list that's Terry's and one list that's not. Now, interestingly enough, not everybody spells their name T-E-R-R-Y. There could be some T-E-R-I's in our database, and there's a way to find those folks, and we can use a couple of different techniques, but one way I'd like to teach you today is what's called using the in clause, because the in operator or in clause will help you find a column that's within a set of values, right? So what we're going to do here is look for a first name that's in a set of values, and the set of values here that we're picking is Terry and of course Terry, different spellings, but the set of values are, as here we have as strings, and they're separated by a comma. Now the trick is to put parentheses around them. You got to do the parentheses part because this makes the set when you have the parentheses on both sides. If I run this query, now we get 26 rows instead of 24 because I'm getting back some T-E-R-R-I's. Okay. Now if I only put in one person or one value here, which is legal, and run it, you'll see I just get back Terry, right? So if I was to, for instance, make a mistake and forget a parentheses, it gets mad. It says there's that syntax error, which means, it doesn't know what's going on. So I got to put my parentheses back, and everything's fine. So in command's really good when you have maybe some name variations and you want to like capture all those variations in a succinct manner in your query. You can say like first name in KRIS, CHRIS, CRIS, whatever way you want to spell Chris. You could do that using in. Another cool command that you can use is between. So in helps you look for a set. Between's great because it helps you look for things that are within a range of numbers. So here we're looking for people whose ID is between certain values. So we're looking for all the IDs that are between 1,000 and 1,025. So when I run this query, it'll bring back all the values that are between those numbers. Now there's only 13 rows because for some, what probably happened is some, I'd say some rows got deleted. So it doesn't mean that just because we have a database ID that I'm going to have sequential numbers. So between's also really good, and I would definitely, when you're doing some setting on your own, look at the difference between in and between, and I have some notes here on how they're used. And then better yet, I have some additional resources that you can use to actually go out and learn a little more about it. And in particular, I would go out and look at the how to filter your query results, because it will show you some good information on how to use the where clause. So this ends our challenge for day 3, and we now know how to sort columns, order columns, and restrict the number of rows that come back from our table. So we've gone pretty far. So tomorrow we're going to expand on how we can filter columns, and we're going to add in some more ways to do that. So that'll be pretty cool. So I'll see you then.